Hello, I'm Lindsay. I'm here today to show you a colouring tutorial with the graphic markers pens, because a lot of people have said that they'd like to know how to use them. They are a little bit different to your pro markers, but I really think it's worth sticking with them until you get used to them, because they are brilliant pens. Okay, so I've stamped out some images here. This is one of the penny black ones drawn by Mo Manning, and I absolutely love these images. So I'm going to show you how to colour. Firstly, before I get started, you may notice in the video that some of my pens will look like you're used to seeing them with the grey tip on the bullet point, and some of my pens are not. This is because I got the first lot of pens being on the Pan Pastel design team, and we were asked what we liked about the pens, what we didn't like about the pens, and some of the problems were not being able to identify the bullet point easy enough, so the grey stripe is there for you to do that. And another of the problems is one that I'm sure you will all know from your pro markers and things is it's probably not going to work now, because I want it to. No. You know when you go to open your pens and the whole tube comes out? That was quite a big issue with some of the early ones, but it's not going to do it now because I wanted to show you. But so then Kerry Kennedy, who is our design team leader, went back and she spoke with Bernie, who runs Premium Art Brands, and they went back to the people who developed graphic markers and they told them the good things and the bad things. So they came back and they changed a few little bits and pieces before they were launched on UK television to you all. So that's why some of my pens look a little bit different to the ones that you will have. Okay, I've stamped out my images onto the Premium Art Brands card. It's really important that you use the correct card, because it does make a huge difference with alcohol markers. I'm forever being asked why people get so much bleed when they try to colour. It's the wrong card. If you use the wrong card, the pens will really bleed really badly, whether it's pro markers, graphic markers, Copics. Any alcohol markers will bleed really badly on the wrong card. But if you have the right super smooth card, such as the Premium Art Brands card that I've got here, it should be a lot better. You do still get some bleed if you go over and over things, but that will again be the case with any alcohol markers. So, okay, let's get started. I do tend to colour light to dark, but if I'm using a really strong colour, I tend to put that in first so that I can tone it down as I go. So I've got Princess Rose here, and it's a lovely colour, but it is really very bright. So I like to use this colour just to add a little bit of a rosy cheek, and sometimes highlight the tops of their eyes a little bit, maybe a little tiny bit on the nose, just to give it a little bit extra. But obviously, as you can see, she looks a bit like a clown there with it being so bright, so we do need to tone it down. The next skin colour that I use, and I use this all the time, is Cotton, and that comes in the soft colours set. And again, this is one that doesn't have the grey tip. And then I just go over really quickly with a quick layer of that all over. Don't worry about being too careful at this point, because it doesn't matter, you're going to go over this quite a lot more anyway, so that's not going to be a problem. One thing people do say to me a lot is that they bin things because they think if they get a little bit of bleed or something, it's the end of the world. And I'd like to show you that it's not, and you shouldn't throw away your things. I hate it when people say they've thrown things away. I never throw anything away. I'm terrible. So it's a case of anything that breaks gets taken apart. Anything that I decide I really don't like and I can't use, I'll salvage the bits for another project. So, and certainly with alcohol markers, if you bleed out a bit or go over the lines or anything, there are plenty of ways to fix it. So I will try and show that to you in this demonstration as well. You might be able to hear my cat purring in the background. He's stolen a Eeyore hot water bottle cover from me, and he likes to pat it and suck it and purrs like a lunatic. So sorry if you do hear him. He gets quite loud sometimes. Okay, so that's your first layer done. The next colour that I use for skin tones is the Nude Color. Again, that's from the Soft Colours set. And again, it's one of the original pens that I got first off. And I just like to go over and do a layer of where the shadows would be on her face. I do quite a thick layer because we're going to go over again with another darker colour afterwards. So again, you don't need to be too precious about it. Just quickly scribble it in, really. And this is how you start to add shape to their faces, because, you know, shadows are everything on a face. It's what makes it look human to us when we can see shadows. And there's surprisingly quite a lot of shadows on a human face because of the shape of it. Okay, I might just go in and put a second layer over the top of that just quickly, because I want it to stand out from the first layer, and we're going to blend it all in the end, so it'll all look nice and even anyway. But I do like the shadows to stand out, because you'll notice with alcohol markers, if you're not sure if you've added enough colour or blended out enough, give them a couple of minutes, because they do lighten as they dry. So if you go on what it looks like the instant you finish colouring, you might get it a bit off. I always used to do that. I used to blend and blend and blend because I thought, oh, it's too dark, and it turns out that it wasn't, and I'd end up over blending, so I'd lose all the definition that I'd put in. So I would definitely recommend, if you're not sure, give it a couple of minutes and just see what it looks like once it's dried properly and it all lightens, because it might look a bit different to what you think it's going to. Okay, I'm happy with that now that I've got my second one. Also, make sure when you put the tops back on that you hear them click shut properly, because otherwise you might get your pens drying out. The next colour that I'm using is the Skin colour, and that comes from the Manga Colours set. So with this one, I'm just going to go along the very edges of the shadows and just add a little bit more definition. And this is a really nice sort of peachy colour, so it gives that peachy tone. I'm also going to go over the cheeks to blend them in a little bit more, and the tops of her eyes, all the places where I've put the princess rose and it's still looking very bright, a bit neon, which isn't really realistic. Always remember that there'll be shadow underneath the head, because obviously her head's coming forward. And you'll find with a lot of images that if you look at them, it's not too hard to identify where the shadows would be, because a lot of artists are really quite good at giving you clues in the way they've drawn them. So at this point, you know, the lines of different colour that I've done are quite dramatic and they stand out quite a bit more than you would want them to. I'm just going to go over where her hair is and just the bits of the very strongest shadow, just so that they'll have a little bit more definition than some of the others. I mean, when I'm not doing tutorials, I do tend to faff a bit with my colouring. I can sit there for ages just adding little bits and thinking, oh, a little bit more there, a little bit more here. You know, you can actually get a little bit lost in doing that, I find. Anyway, I've got my cotton again, which is the one we started with, and I'm just going to go over the whole lot so that it just blends in. If there are areas that you think need to be blended really well, a circular pattern can be quite helpful, because you're just pushing the ink about on the paper. The other thing to remember as well when you're colouring something is to try looking at it from far away as well. If you're not sure if you've blended enough, or if you think you might have blended too much, look at it from a distance and see how it looks then, because things do look very different from a distance to what they do when you're right up close to them. So, you know, you can sometimes be far too close to an image to see whether or not it's effective. You'll notice some bits I go over more than once. It depends whether or not I think that it's blended well enough. I do have a tendency to overblend though, so I have to be careful to avoid that. I don't think that looks too bad. Right, so we'll go on to her hair now, I think. I've got my brown tones here, all ready to use. I sometimes use a bit of black as well. And again, I'll go light to dark, but because I'm going to use a little bit of black, I'm going to start with that because I'm going to want that toned down a lot, otherwise it's just going to deaden the colour. But I just use the black to define the darkest areas. So where the parting would be, the very, very edges of the hair, and areas with the biggest amount of shadow as well. Now the really fantastic thing about these images is with the hair you don't have to be too precious about it because of the way Mo Manning draws. It's very free in style, so it looks fine if you're a bit scribbly, and I like to be scribbly. I'm not too neat of a person. Okay, this colour I go in with, oh, got the wrong one anyway. The next colour I go in with is copper, which is going to be my lightest colour. And I just go over the whole of the hair with that. Again, very quickly, don't worry about being too particular about it. And I tend to find with hair as well, you know, go with the image. If it's sort of straight flyaway hair, you know, use your strokes to help define that as well. So, you know, with straight hair you wouldn't want to be going around in circles too much. Going straight, sort of fairly free lines. Doesn't matter if you go over. Okay, so that's my lightest colour. And then the next colour up is cacao. I don't know if I've said that right, but so then you're going in over all of the hair, but you go in only as far as you want, only up to where you want your lightest colour to show through, so the lightest area of the hair. If you feel you need to, turn your paper as well, because it can sometimes be helpful rather than trying to twist your wrist around to funny angles. Okay. So the next colour is chocolate, and again you go over it, and this time you just go so you're a little bit further out than the last colour to leave a little bit of that colour on the edge of the lightest one. And then my last brown colour is bronze, which is actually one I ordered separately because I liked the look of it and I thought I'd use it quite a lot. It wasn't in one of the sets that I got, so... Okay, and then once again we go back to the lightest colour, which is the copper, and we just go over the whole thing and blend it all in together. You'll notice I've gone a bit blurry at the edges of some of my hair. That's okay, and that's part of what I want to show you about making mistakes and ways to cover them up. So I've sort of done that on purpose a bit, although I do tend to do it anyway sometimes. But that will just show you how to fix a mistake if you do it. So okay. I think now we'll go on to pinks, and I think I'm going to do the flower and her wings in the pink. No, actually I'm going to do her dress in the pink. I'll do the flower and her wings in the blue. Okay, again, lightest to dark, but I always start with my really bold colour so that I can just blend it in. It just gives some good definition on some of the darkest areas. And this colour I'm using is Magenta, which is a really, really strong colour. That's the thing about the graphic markers. A lot of them are quite strong colours, but don't let that put you off using them, because they work really nicely. I mean, as you can see from the skin colours, that was such a bright colour, but now it looks lovely as her cheeks. So, and the next colour I'm going to use is Azalea, and Magenta and Azalea are both in the classic colours set. And again, I'm using it now because it's a very, very strong bright colour and I want to dull it down some. Okay, so then I'm going to go over with my lightest colour. I'm having trouble remembering which one is the lighter of these two, or which one it is that I want to use. And what I tend to do is, if I'm not sure about the colours, I just do a little line somewhere off from the picture and put them up against one another, and you can see the difference in the colours quite easily then. So I'm going to go with the Satin, which is in either the soft colours set or the manga colours set. And I'm just going to go over the whole of her dress with this. Also, when colouring tiny details, remember the pressure you put on with the pen makes quite a bit of difference. So if you only do just a tiny light touch, you're going to put down a lot less colour, which is a really helpful thing to know. Okay, and the next colour I'm going to use is the Princess Rose. Okay, now I'm going to go back over with my Satin and just blend it all in. And I'm using the circular motion here because I've still got quite strong colours there and I want them really blended in. I don't want them to stand out and look odd. And I might actually just use a little bit of flannel. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Flannel, which is a colour that I, again, bought separately because I thought it would be really useful. It's very, very nearly white, but not quite. It's just a slightly off-white. And just blend in the lightest areas so that it gets a bit of a floaty look. And it looks very soft coloured. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to do is the green of this flower, and I think that's going to be a good way of showing you how. Okay, sorry if you notice a bit of a jump there. My memory card just ran out, so I had to upload and delete before I could do any more. Okay, so now I'm going to show you, I'm going to colour this green stalk to the flower, and I'm going to show you, because I will undoubtedly go over the line somewhere here, how to blend the colour back in. Okay, so very, very lightly, as I was saying before, so you're less likely to go over the lines. Just really just the most gentle touches on the paper, and you can get away with not bleeding over, but I'm sure that won't work the whole way through, and if it does, I'll make a mistake on purpose just to show you. The longer that your pen is touching the surface and the more pressure you put on it, the more ink is going to go onto the paper. You just know it'd go perfect when I'm trying to make a mistake. If I wasn't trying to make a mistake, you can guarantee I would have bled over the lines there. Okay, so now I'm going to do it on purpose. Okay, so you can see here now I've gone over the lines. So what I'm going to do is get the palest pink that I was using, the Satin colour, if I can find it now. Sorry, when I got up to sort out my memory card, I've mixed up all my pens, which I had all nicely organised. Aha. Okay, so take your palest colour and just go over it again. And you'll be able to see the colour disappearing back into the line where it's supposed to be. Now, if this means you've bled out too much on the other colours, you can just go back in with the colours you were using before. So I've got my Azalea here. And a little bit of Princess Rose as well. And then back with the Satin again, and just blend those in so that they're not going to stand out. We'll do the whole section so that it looks even again. And then, because I used my flannel on it before to lighten it, I'm going to go back over with that as well. So that it all matches in and you don't have any odd bits. And you'll be able to see now that it's all blended back. I can still see where it was, but I always can when I make mistakes, so. And I very much doubt that most people would notice. And then because that piece of green looks darker because it's been bled back in, I'm just going to go back with my military, which was the first green I was using, and just add a bit of extra colour to the rest of the stalk so that it looks the same. So that's how to bleed your mistakes back in. Okay, now I'm going to go in with some blues to do the wings and the flower. Again, I'm going to start with my darkest colour. And I'm not going to do very much with this colour at all because it's very, very dark, but it's just to add a little bit of shadow to the bottom of that wing, and I'm going to put some in the centre of the flower as well. Okay. And then next I'll go in with my lightest colour, which is Misty Morning, and that's from the Soft Colours set. This is the problem I was telling you about earlier. It's, I pulled it out and that's happened. Which is precisely why they changed the tops. Right, okay, so the next blue I'm going to go in with, I think I'm going to do some in my second darkest colour, because again it's a very strong colour, which is Bermuda, and I don't want it to be too bold, but I want to get some of that colour in. Okay, now that I've done the darker colours, I'm also going to go in with the next darkest colour because they're all really strong colours and I don't want them to be overpowering, but they're just helping to add to the blended effect because they're different shades. So when I say I go light to dark, I do, but there's no hard and fast rules. It depends. If I'm using strong colours, I like to be able to have the opportunity to blend them in, and if you were to wait and do them last, you'd then have to go back over quite a lot to blend them in, so that's why I'm doing it this way. And then I'm going to go back over with the Misty Morning. Oh, no. I'm going to go in with Sky, actually. Okay, now I'm going back in with the Misty Morning, which is the lightest colour again. And I'm just going to blend that all in. It might take a bit of blending because the colours are really strong. Right, I think I might just go over those wings with a little bit of fresh mint which is a slightly more greeny colour, but I do really like mixing it with the blues. And again, the Fresh Mint is from the Soft Colours set. You can see it's just made the blues look a little bit less solid on the wings. And then I'll put a few little touches for the little buddy bits. And that was Bermuda and Sky. I think I might just go over the flower one last time in the Misty Morning again. See, I could sit here and mess about with colouring for hours now. It's just thinking I'll just add a little bit more here and I'll just add a little bit more there. I think that will do for the colouring. Okay, now I just want to show you where I've gone a bit blurry on the edges here with her hair. There are a few different ways to fix that. Things that I personally think are essentials for anyone who's doing stamping and colouring. I've lost one of my pens, but I'll find it in a minute. But are these gel pens. I have one in gold, silver and white. They can also be used for highlighting and are really quite handy for things like that. But if you do go over the edges, and this is something that I quite like to do sometimes when I don't go over the edges anyway. Here's one I coloured earlier, and you'll be able to see I've gone all around the edges with the silver pen. So if you had any little bits of bleed, that would cover it up. Here's the other one, just a fine liner pen. Again, another stamping essential in my book if you've got any areas where you've not stamped the image quite as clearly as you'd like, or where your colouring has taken away definition of the lines, you can just go over it with your fine liner and touch it up, which is really handy. But for this tutorial I'm going to use Cool Grey Zero and just do a little outline. I mean, if you're going to cut the images out, it doesn't matter anyway, and you don't need to worry about this, but some images are not very easy to cut out, and this would probably be one of them to cut out well anyway. But if you just go round with the little grey border and you're just bleeding the colour back in again the same way that I did with the stalk, it just neatens up your edges, and it does make the image stand out a little bit more anyway. It looks quite dark when you first start laying the colour on, but it does lighten, so don't panic. It's not going to look really bold and obvious. It just means you don't need to worry too much if you've bled out a little bit on the edges. It's not the end of the world. Again, you don't need to be too particular about this. And as I've been doing that outline, I've just noticed I've also bled a little bit of blue into the thumb there. So I'm going to find my skin tones. And just go back over that to blend that out a bit. Okay, so that's that finished, and that's your completed image. I hope you found this tutorial to be helpful. I'm going to go make a card with this, and then I'll come back quickly and show you what I've made at the end. Okay, thanks. Bye. Hello, I'm back again. This is my finished card with the image that I showed you. I just thought I'd pop back on to show it to you. I hope you like it, and I hope the tutorial was helpful. Okay, bye.